So today we are going to discuss about layer 2 deployment. So layer 2 deployment means we have to use concept of switching, means we just have to change the firewall interface as like switch. So switch will do forward data traffic based on MAC address. So the same kind of function we can perform here on Palo-ALTO as well. So let's say I'm trying to use two interfaces of Palo-ALTO as a layer 2. So let's say I'm going to do use these two interfaces, Ethernet 1 by 2 and 1 by 3 as a layer 2. Means for these two interfaces, your Palo-ALTO going to maintain MAC address table. So based on MAC address table, it do forward your data traffic. Here we are not going to configure any IP address or anything regarding like layer 3. Means we are not going to configure IP address, not going to participate in any routing. So we are just going to use these two interfaces, just pure layer 2. Which two interfaces? Ethernet 1 by 1, 1 by 2 and 1 by 3. So within firewall, like we are going to use these two interfaces as a layer 2. So just write here like layer 2 interface. Let's suppose we have a company and having two floors. Ethernet 2 connecting first floor of the company and Ethernet 1 by 3 connecting second floor. So for such configurations, like we get a function, both floor traffic we can inspect here on Palo Alto. Like if first floor trying to connect with second floor switch, so the traffic moves via the switch and it's totally layer 2. So we can inspect our traffic as well. We can monitor. So a company like this is actually useful when a company does not have a switch, then we can make firewall interfaces as a switch. For a very small enterprise network where we have just one single firewall, so there we can use. But here for design and practical purpose, I'm considering like we have two floors in a company, first floor and second floor. And these two floor we are trying to inspect, these two floor traffic we are trying to inspect on Palo Alto. So if any user coming from first floor and trying to access resource of second floor, so it just follow the path of Palo Alto firewall. So I'm considering users also here. So these two users, let's say belongs to first floor. And second floor having two users, Windows 6 and Windows 7. So guys, as I'm going to consider these two interfaces as a layer 2, so we just have to use same IP subnet. Means I'm going to do use same IP subnet here. So step by step we have to verify this layer 2 deployment in Palo Alto. Like we just have to follow different procedure to complete the whole lab. So the first task is to just verify layer 2 interface connectivity between first and second floor. And this interface Ethernet 1 I'm going to use as a layer 3. And this layer 3 interface uh, will be my WAN outside interface. And here I'm going to use IP address, which is 191/24. That's my WAN IP. So I just do configure on Ethernet 1 by 1. So it's my WAN zone. So the very first task is to connect first and second floor users. Task 1. So guys, I'm mentioning here a task also. So it's become easy when you do repeat the lab. Configuration of layer 2 interface on Palo Alto and verification. That's my first task. And after completing first task, you have to move on next task. That is task number 2. Task number 2 is to create one VLAN interface for gateway create VLAN interface for gateway. So guys, if we are not going to configure IP address on these two interfaces, so it means how we can decide like how exactly these user goes out for internet connection and all. So Palo Alto gives solution for this. Palo Alto says if you're using interface which is layer 2, so you can create a logical VLAN interface. So in order to provide gateway address for these two sub interface for these two physical interfaces, I'm going to use one logical VLAN interface. Logical VLAN interface. Logical VLAN interface. That is, let's say VLAN 10, and I'm going to configure IP address on this VLAN, which is 10.1.1/24, and it is my layer 3 interface. So that's my task number 2. Create one VLAN interface on gateway. For gateway layer 3 interface, it should be layer 3. It should be layer 3 as well. It is your logical interface, VLAN interface. So when these users trying to go to out, so they can use this logical interface. So that's my first task. After first task, that's my second task, not first. See, in order to complete our second task, we have to create allow policy as well NAT rule. So I'm going to use one NAT policy as well, one security policy. So let's suppose your LAN layer 2 interfaces belongs to zone, which is your LAN trust. And interface 1 by 1 belongs to WAN zone. So if you want to move traffic from LAN trust zone to WAN zone, so you just have to create one policy in order to allow your traffic as well. You have to create NAT policy to perform NATing for these LAN subnets, like whatever the LAN subnet you are using inside. So if it tried to go to outside, so there must be NAT rule to get internet access. So I do use LAN as well. Task number third, you can create DSCP on Palo Alto to provide IP address. DSCP configuration on Palo Alto. So that's your task number third. So guys, first I'm going to configure IP address on my LAN machines. So it's my LAN machine 10.1.1.10. Mention username and password. Here as well, you have to mention username and password. So Windows 6, we are going to configure here 10.1.1.6. So gateway, guys, gateway we have to use, that is my VLAN interface IP. So the very first thing you have to remember, like when you do try to connect within floor, like first floor try to connect second floor, so it's same broadcast domain, it is same subnet, so we do not require any gateway or default gateway. But when you try to go to out, when you do try to access internet, so in that case you require gateway. So in order to provide gateway address for layer 2, because layer 2 interfaces does not support IP address, so Palo Alto will facilitate a concept of logical VLAN interface. So here we have to create one logical VLAN interface, VLAN 10, and this VLAN interface we have to bind with this layer 2 group. So if layer 2 interfaces trying to go to outside on internet, so they just have to use this gateway interface 10.1.1, and it always be layer 3. Logical VLAN interface will always be layer 3, and then we just have to create a policy, that is VLAN layer 3 interface to WAN zone. So once you create allow policy and NAT rule, so your users get internet access.
So basically, sir, VLAN will be created over Palo Alto
Yeah.
switches.
Uh, yeah, logical VLAN interface we have to create on Palo Alto.
Palo Alto, exactly. Okay.
So DNS address I'm going to configure, which is 4.2.2.2. So it's done. Now I'm coming on Windows 7. Here as well, we have to configure 10.1.20. On Windows 4, I'm going to configure 10.1.1.30. So it is my 10.1.1.40. So later, once we do configure DSCP, so we just remove it. Initially, we are just doing this manual IP configuration here. Later, once we do perform task number third, so we just have to remove this layer 2. We just have to remove manual IP configuration. So guys, we just have to come on here and at Palo Alto, and we got the IP address which is 61. So now I'm trying to log in into my lab. So guys, firewall management IP is 61. So I just have to log in. Click on here and then say HTTPS 61. Just mention username and password. And now step by step we have to configure our task. So we just have to configure Ethernet 1 by 3 and 1 by 2 as a layer 2. So I'm just coming here, and first we have to change the name of firewall. So as we are going to configure it is as a layer 2, so I'm just changing the name layer 2 deployment, layer 2 firewall. See, the advantage of this Palo Alto is like the whole firewall is not going to work as a layer 2. Few interfaces we can use as a layer 2, and rest interfaces we can configure either as a layer 3. As well, we can also configure interfaces as a vWire or virtual wire simultaneously. That's most beneficial part of this Palo Alto, using Palo Alto firewall. Like REST firewall, if we do talk about Cisco ASA, if we do use to interface of ASA in transparent firewalling or virtual firewalling, virtual transparent firewalling, so whole firewall get changed into virtual one, transparent one, means we cannot use firewall as a layer 3 after changing into this transparent mode. But here the deployment mode on Palo Alto works based on interface. If we do change the two interface as a layer 2, rest interfaces we can either configure as a layer 3 as a vWire as well. So that's a very good feature. Like it doesn't change the whole firewall into layer 2. So that's why we are using kind of mixed deployment. We are using these two interfaces as a layer 2, and Ethernet 1 I'm going to do use as a layer 3, and Ethernet 1 I'm going to use with layer 3 zone. So here we do create zone type layer 3, which we called with layer 3 interface. For layer 2 interface, we do have to create a zone type, which is layer 2, and layer 2 zone type we can only call with layer 2 interfaces. So in deployment of Palo Alto, you also have to understand, like if zone type is layer 2, then only we can call with layer 2 interfaces. If zone type is layer 3, so layer 3 zone we can call with layer 3 interface. So we can say zones supported interface type. If it is mismatch, so it do not gonna work. For example, let's say I'm trying to map these two interfaces with layer 3 zone. So it's not gonna work. So I'm coming here on Palo Alto. So first I'm coming here and trying to create zones. So I'm going to create one zone which is for layer 2. So see, when you do try to create zone, so it do ask about the type. So here we do have to mention layer 2. So I'm coming here and saying layer 2, which all interfaces we have to call in layer 2, 1 by 2 and 1 by 3. So come here and say LAN, LAN trust L2 zone, or I can say L2 trust, L2 LAN zone. So zone name is L2 LAN trust zone, L2 LAN zone, and we are trying to call our interfaces. So we just have to say okay first and come here and change the type of interface. Interface type we just have to change into layer 2. So come here and select 1 by 3 first and say layer 2 and say okay, and here as well. See, now if you do come here, you can call under layer 2 zone are two interfaces, Ethernet 1 by 2 and 1 by 3. Now it's done. So that's very first task, like we have to create layer 2 zone and we just have to call our layer 2 interfaces. Once these two interfaces will become the part of layer 2 zone, we can perform rest task. So rest task,
Now, sir, these layer 2 and layer 3 virtually connected to each other, right, sir?
yeah, you can say.
Yeah.
So I'm coming on here VLAN. So after doing these two tasks, you have to create VLAN group. You can say you can give any name, layer 2 group. Let's say I'm saying layer 2 group. And under this group, we have to call our layer 2 interfaces. Means we have to call our layer 2 interfaces under one logical group. So we are just calling 1 by 2 and 1 by 3. Say okay. That's the grouping and VLAN configuration task. That's very first task which we done. That's task number 1, configuration of layer 2 interface on Palo Alto and verification. So we done it. We just created two interface and we create VLAN group, or you can say logical group, that is L2 group, and we called these two interfaces. If you come here, you can verify. See, these two interfaces join the VLAN group L2 group. So here it do not ask about the IP configuration because it is your layer 2. After then we just have to configure our layer 3 interface. Come on here on 1 by 1 and say layer 3 interface, and you can directly create here zone as well. WAN untrust and say okay, and virtual router, that's my default one, let's say routing table, and IP address as we decided, like we have to configure 192.168.101.191/24. Yeah, So we done configuration of interfaces. So guys, these two interfaces actually belongs to same zone. So we do not have to create any policy as well. Like in order to allow traffic between these two interfaces, we do not require any policy because we just call in a single zone. So it do allow from default policy, that is intra zone default. Once you done all these configuration, you just have to commit. So come here and say commit. See your configuration completed. It's done. So now for these two interfaces, Palo Alto Firewall will do forward packets that is based on MAC address. For these two interfaces, Firewall will maintain MAC address table and that will use to forward your data traffic. So if I do try to ping from 10.1.1.10 to 10.1.30, so in this case, my policy which allow traffic that is intra zone default and Follow Alto will forward the packet based on MAC tables. In order to populate or generate MAC table properly, devices will generate ARP request. If Palo Alto does not have a MAC address for particular destination, so it also do generate ARP request. That's basic working of layer 2 interface in case of Palo Alto. So if I'm coming here and trying to ping with the IP, which is actually belongs to my first floor. So let's say I'm trying to connect with my first floor, which is having machines 30 as well 40. So I'm coming and saying 10.1.1.30. It's not working. See, I think by default, if you do check, so Windows Firewall must be on. So that's basically not allowed to accept your data traffic. But still, if you do check here log or sessions, so sessions will show you clearly like traffic passes through your Palo Alto. If you do check here sessions, so session all. So we must get sessions. See, it says one active flow, which is going from 10.1.10 to 10.1.30, and the zone, which is LAN zone, traffic moving between LAN zone. So it means we just have to off our firewall on machines. So see, yeah, it's default firewall. Now let's check, see, it's working fine. We are getting reply. So this is the basic layer 2 function. Means we can do use interfaces as a layer 2. We didn't configure anything on interfaces. We just group all two interfaces, and these two interfaces we call zone LAN trust. And if any traffic comes, so firewall will allow from intra-zone default policy. You can verify and check under the session. So let's say if I do check session number 8, so session ID, so it must apply the policy that is intra-zone default. See, which rule allow traffic intra-zone default, which says like if traffic comes from same zone, so I just do allow it. And you can verify the interfaces. Traffic coming or egress interface, ingress interface is 1 by 3 and egress is 1 by 2.
What was session number 8, sir?
This is the connection table or session table of Palo Alto. All right. So whatever the traffic which is going through the firewall, it do maintain session table. So now you can verify the each session with session number. See, which we already discussed, I think. For every traffic, it is showing the session number. So you can check it based on connection table. So for Windows 5, if you do try to connect, so in order to connect, again, you just have to off your firewall. Firewall.cpl and say off. Now, now we have to verify the MAC address table as well. Show MAC. See, you can, in order to check your MAC address table, you just have to use your group name. Show MAC LAN to group. For this group, you want to check MAC address table or forwarding table. So see, for these two interfaces, it is maintaining MAC address table. This MAC address table will be used to forward the traffics. So it is having default timeout, which is 1800 seconds. So 1800 seconds is quite long time. It's just half an hour. It is 3600 seconds. That is 1 hour. So by default timeout is 1800 seconds. And here it is showing the capacity of maximum VLAN number, which is 250. Means it can do store the maximum. It depends on firewall model as well. So by the way, the firewall which we are using here, it can maximum entries which can support that's 250. A small capacity firewall, so it doesn't supports much. But if you are using bigger number or bigger version, so you get maximum support based on model number. After task 1 verification which we done, we just have to move on task number 2. We just have to create one logical interface. So come on here on Palo Alto and under VLAN section, see, say add. Here you can give any number. So I'm saying interface number 10. And it is asking to call your VLANs to whom you want to provide gateway, for which and for all for which all interfaces you want to use this VLAN interface as a gateway. So we just have to call our VLAN group. So layer 2 group. Layer 2 group having a group of physical interfaces, which is Ethernet 1 by 3 and 1 by 2. Means if any traffic which trying to go to out via 1 by 2 and 1 by 3, so I do use this virtual interface. Now because VLAN interface is layer 3, so we just have to use routing table. So I'm going to use default one and security zone, which is my LAN trust. Say LAN trust L3. So just to distinguish zones, I'm using L3 LAN trust here. And come to here and configure IP address. See, in order to get connectivity, in order to check our connectivity with gateway, I'm going to use management profile as well. So come here and select advanced option and say management profile. So we can get the ping response as well. So check mark on network services ping and say okay and say okay. So if anyone trying to ping with this IP, so we already have like management profile, so it do allow the ping service on the interface. Otherwise, if you do try to check your ping connectivity, you didn't get it reply. See, as task number 2 we completed. Here we after task number 2, there's one more verification. You can say that's your task number 3, internet verification and NAT task, NAT configuration. So click here and say task number 3, internet rule configuration and NAT policy. So guys, we want to allow traffic from our layer 2 to layer 3. So we just have to create rule accordingly. So we just have to come here at firewall console, and we just have to create one policy. Allow internet traffic. Source. So guys, some people now have confusion like which zone we have to allow, because these two physical interfaces belongs to layer 2 zone, and the logical VLAN interface that's also connecting our layer 2 interface. So in policy, which zone we have to allow? So see, interzone we cannot configure in Palo Alto policy, security policy rules. Like if I do select here layer 2 LAN zone, and here in destination layer 3 WAN and trust, so it is actually incompatible. See, when you do try to commit it, so it doesn't allow, it must give you error. In virtual system, VSS1 from zone layer 2 zone of type layer 2 and the zone WAN and trust of layer 3 are incompatible in security rule allow internet. Configuration is invalid. So it means in this scenario, we can only do configure layer 3 to layer 3. Like security policy only do supports same types of zones in policy group, security policy. So because layer 2 interfaces belongs to layer 3 VLAN interface, so in order to allow traffic, we just have to use VLAN layer 3 interface and WAN zone. So the same I'm trying to do here, and I'm coming and replacing with this layer 2 zone with this layer 3 LAN trust, and destination is WAN, and application, let's say as of now for time being I'm saying any, and traffic is allowed. And below we have to create one NAT rule and say add NAT rule for internet original traffic. So original traffic coming from again layer 3. See, NAT itself does like doesn't showing layer 2 zone here, because NATing can only be like possible with layer 3. As well, the additional feature which we get in Palo Alto, that is in case of vWire, we can also do perform NATing. That's different case. We'll see later. So as of now, we just have to perform NATing for layer 3 LAN interface, and in destination, we have to use WAN and trust. You can specify your LAN segment as well, like you are trying to only allow internet for particular subnet, you can mention here. After then, in order to pat or in order to perform dynamic NAT, we have to select this section, source address translation. So destination NAT is for static one, so we do not going to configure this one. We just have to use this tab and say dynamic IP and port, and click on here interface address, and I'm going to do perform pat on interface. So select this and say okay. To just identify the things zones, you can create tags also. Tag is just to categorize the things in Palo Alto and to just filter the policies and rules. So I'm saying LAN 2 zone. It's my trusted one. So you can select the color with forest green, and WAN untrust. It's my danger zone. So I'm saying red. So see, in policy, it is also showing like that. So in some companies, you do check like tags they do use. Now you just have to commit your policy. Once you commit your policy, so you have to verify the things like does everything working as per our configuration or not. So the very first configuration which we have to do, we have to verify the ping connection with this logical interface 10.1.1. As well, we have to verify the internet connection and NAT and policy verification for traffic. So when traffic goes out from these two interface, so it do perform NATing as well, it do matches with your allow policy. So we done this task number third. See if you do come here and try to use internet. Let's do browse something. It says it's not working. All right, guys, we missed one thing, that is default route configuration. So as we do not have default route in my routing table, if I do show you, see, we just missed one thing. So VLAN interface is also part of my routing table because it is layer 3 interface. So I just try to configure my routing table. I'm changing name as well, my route, and static route, say add default route. Everyone knows about the use of default route. You can't store all internet routes in your routing table. So in order to get internet, you have to just point one default route towards ISP, and ISP does have all routes for internet. So for every organization, if you try to use internet access, so you just have to use default route, and default route you can use with the static default route command, or you can configure with BGP. So later I'll do show you like how we can do configure this static default route with BGP as well. If you do terminate the link with BGP, so there is possibility to configure BGP as well on Palo Alto because it does support. See, once we configure the default route, if I do try to Google, so see it's working fine. So it means we done our task number third as well, and your all traffic recognized by your firewall. In case of layer 2 as well, you can allow or deny your traffic. And one more verification, you just have to ping your logical interface. It should work. Yeah, it's working fine. So this is our task number third, internet policy configuration and NAT policy. In order to verify these policies, you just have to come here and you can again check the session, or you can check the log as well. So you can select any session. So session ID 771. See, source is this, destination is this, protocol number is 17 because it's UDP based traffic, and C2S means initial traffic from client to server. When reply comes, so it says S to C. So C2S means client to server, and for return traffic, we get a symbol that is S to C, server to client. So when you do initiate traffic, so you become client, and the destination will become server. And when server replies, so it's become server and client. So C rule which allow traffic, that's internet in and allow traffic, and natural internet, that's we configure. When traffic in at your firewall, as of now it's showing like the VLAN interface 10 and egress interface one by one. This is my WAN 1. Now in case of layer 2 interface, your firewall will do perform all traffic inspection. So anything which you want to block at layer 2 mode as well, you can perform. So your task number 4, that is to block Facebook traffic.
Task number 5 or 4.
Yeah, you can just mention the numbering.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have already mentioned the task number 4, that's DSCP.
Right.
So we didn't done DSCP
Yet.
yet. Block Facebook application ID. And in case of layer 2, there's one more concept, that is sub interface configuration. So I think we do perform sub interface configuration with layer 2, and sub interface configuration and traffic inspection for same subnet. Like with sub interface or tag traffic, we can allow communication like this. Ideally, if I do send traffic from 10.1.1.10 to 10.1.20, so it should go directly. But in case of layer 2, if scenario is like that, like you are in data center and your web server is here and database server is here, and you are trying to inspect your all traffic, either it is coming from outside as well, a communication between web server and database server. So if your interface is running in L2, so you can segregate these two devices based on VLAN, and here we can perform inter VLAN communication with same subnet in Palo Alto with the help of layer 2. So that's our next lab which we do in next session. So the today's last task, we have to just block the Facebook and DHCP verification for this VLAN interface. So I'm just coming here and saying policy configuration block Facebook for LAN. So when traffic comes from layer 2, layer 3 LAN trust, and it goes on WAN and trust, and if traffic matches with Facebook base. So later we'll do identify like content filtering as well. One application we can allow, rest we can deny. Like we can only do we can allow Facebook base, and we can block Facebook chat uploading with SSL decryption. We'll do this, so we get proper like verification and log as well. So here I'm saying like deny, so it should be at above, because policy verification is always top to bottom. So if we do not perform like this, so all traffic matches with policy number 1 as well. DSCP, so let's configure DSCP, say add. See, you just have to select VLAN interface. As we already know, like physical interfaces can provide DSCP in Palo Alto, but here you can do use VLAN interface as well to provide IP address in your LAN environment. My pool is 100 to 200 and gateway 10.1. Mask is this 255. DNS is 888 and say OK. And now you have to say enable and say commit. So that's all about for today. Like we've done all tasks of layer 2 configuration and verification. Let's just finish it. So it's installed, it's committed, policy committed. So come here and say See, you must get IP address. Yeah, you got it. And it should be 100 because the starting range is 100. Yeah. Indian is there, but if you do try to use Facebook, so it's not gonna allow you. REST application you can do use. If you do check the Facebook traffic, so session all filter application Facebook base. So it is clearly showing like all traffic discarded by your firewall. And it is using policy number 894. It is like using policy Facebook blog, but I'm gonna do here verify it 894, so you can see 10.1.1.100 is the user and Facebook LAN, block Facebook for LAN users. So that's all about for today, guys.